All right, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Driveline. Eric here. If you guys haven't done so, before I get into this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm really trying to re-gear my head to get back into some video content. I'm looking forward to doing some editing. Probably do some editing on some videos this week. I got some stuff I'm putting together, so I'm looking forward to that. Make sure you're subscribed. I think like over half of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed. So, but I got to get back into gear. YouTube really punished me for for taking a long time off. I did a video every day except for 3 days one year, and I've done almost 1,000 videos on this channel, and boy, when you have that kind of consistency and you stop for a month or two, YouTube really puts the brakes on you. So I got to build that back up. Anyway, I'm currently at a weigh station burning some time. I'm once again way too early for my appointment. So I got to burn some time, and figured I would do a video on, I've seen quite a few of your comments. A lot of you want me to take a position on this publicly. I'm not going to do that. I have pretty strong opinions on it, but there's just so much sensitivity out there in our society right now that, you know, it's like rolling a grenade into a room, and I'm just not willing to do that. So some of what I want to talk about, just know that it's not about whether I'm not really taking a position on it in this video, but we can, or we should be able to talk about the outcome and the data and how that's impacting American truck drivers and the American freight market. So you're probably all very well aware that this administration, the Trump administration, Sean Duffy, I got to tell you, man, Sean Duffy, again, whether you agree or disagree with him, has been probably one of the most proactive and productive transportation secretaries, maybe in my lifetime. Very consequential. He's just, you know, he's a wrecking ball right now. And it is having a very profoundly positive impact on the freight market for American truck drivers. Again, you can have your opinions on whether you think non-domiciled truck drivers should be driving here or have the opportunities that all of us born here have. That's not what this video is about. What this video is about is what the impact is for American truck drivers and the American freight industry, and it's honestly pretty damn positive. It really is. We are in December. Tender rejection rates are up. Volumes are kind of ticking up, and from what I'm reading and trying to understand is a lot of that's because inventory was, or at least the volumes going up, a lot of that was because inventory was pretty low because of tariffs and uncertainty. So there's like this mad rush to try and restock warehouses and things like that. So you kind of have this perfect storm where capacity is going down, volumes are ticking up, and it's kind of creating a little bit of a bullish market where 3 months ago there was just no reason to be optimistic whatsoever about the freight markets for 2026. Just none. I mean, there was just pessimism everywhere. And that's really turning around. And it is in large part due to what's happening kind of across the board with a lot of this non-domicile. And so here's what you have to understand about it. There's multiple things in place, or that are being initiated and going into place. Now you can look at it. I think Alabama just removed, I want to say like 88 non-domicile CDL drivers, and there's other states. You know, it's maybe a few thousand total, I think, accumulatively, at least that are on the record. And some of them aren't reporting publicly the same way that some of the other states are. So the number is probably much higher. But you could look at that and you could say, okay, let's say it's 3,000 to 5,000. It's not really that many, and that's true. It's not really that many, but the issue's a lot broader. And I was in a conversation the other night with a friend who I haul freight for Prime, but he's got his own trucks and he hauls it, he was bringing up a conversation about how some of the customers that he deals with are dramatically shifting their policies because they're afraid of the liability of putting their freight on trucks with non-domicile drivers. I had this same conversation the other night with a very large customer of ours and was told point blank, and I don't want to mention the name of the company because it's a very, very big company in the food industry, very big. And this was somebody at one of their plants, so take it a grain of salt. I don't know how much they actually know, but it was just an interesting conversation about, because I had just gotten pulled over for an inspection, and the state trooper in Tennessee, first thing he did when he jumped up in my truck was, we both kind of exchanged a sentence or two, and he said, well, we got the English part out of the way, you're good to go there. So I had mentioned this when I got to the shipper, and it started this whole conversation. So apparently this customer is making nationwide policy shifts to start checking for non-domicile drivers at all of their facilities. And they have facilities in, if not every state, in probably most states, many states, multiple facilities. They've got lots of brands, big company, and they're starting to be concerned about the liability of what happens if we put our freight on a truck with a non-domicile driver. Are we going to have some sort of legal impact? And it seems to me that the decisions are starting to be made across the whole freight industry, the freight market, where it's like, okay, it seems like it's getting to the point where if we got to pay higher rates, so we got to pay higher rates, because that removes the unknown and the potential for liability and the potential for problems. So it's a lot bigger than the 3,000 to 5,000 or whatever that number is of non-domiciled drivers that have been taken off the road so far. It's much, much bigger than that, because a lot of the freight market in general, brokers are now turning against, not working with non-domiciled drivers. Just a lot of the steps throughout the entire freight market are starting to shift and not want to do business in any way, shape, or form with the non-domicile driver market or the illegal driver market, or however you want to label that or call it, because there's so much unknown, there's so much liability, there's legal hoops that might be arriving. The Department of Homeland Security just announced that FinCEN, I believe, is it FinCEN, Financial Crimes Investigation or Network or something like that. I think it's the Department of Homeland Security. They're now getting positioned to start going after banks to stop money being transferred out of the country into other countries via Western Union or, Cash App or whatever, because they're alleging that those funds were derived illegally if the truck driver is an illegal alien or had non-domicile CDL or whatever. Look it up, do your own research, but just think of the impacts that has, because if FinCEN, the Homeland Security, is now going after banks for that sort of thing, then you have to think that the next stage would be potentially any company that might be putting their freight on trucks that are potentially driven by an illegal alien or non-domicile CDL holder. Because the Fed's position is that there's a lot of illegalities with these non-domicile CDLs and a lot of these trucking companies and the way that these trucking companies are deriving their CDLs. So if there's some sort of illegality anywhere in that chain, then any of the financial side of it, be that with shippers and receivers or transmitting money out or paying the driver potentially, any of that could be really murky. So there's this whole snowball ripple effect that's actively real time right now in December 2025 having this profound impact on the freight market. So and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I keep seeing these posts out there of, oh, well, it's not going to make that big of a difference because it's only 3,000 or it's only 5,000 of these CDLs that have, these drivers that have been taken off the road. That's silly. That's just a drop in a bucket. It's not going to make that big of a difference. So you have to step back and see the whole picture. Go up to the 30,000 foot view and see all of the pieces that are being moved around the chessboard right now. And that is equating to a big shift in the freight market where a lot of freight is being shifted away from drivers and trucking companies that can somehow haul it for a lot cheaper, and now coming back to the trucks, the carriers, the drivers who can't haul it for that cheap, and that's creating a lot of bullishness. That's creating a lot of optimism going into 2026. And apparently, according to the data that's out there, FreightWaves has been reporting on this. Craig Fuller over at FreightWaves has been talking about this. The data is showing that tender rejection rates are higher than they should be right now. Volumes are ticking up. Capacity is obviously dropping because you also had the side of it where capacity, a lot of companies, 10 roads just went out, they announced they're going out of business. There's another company down in the south. In fact, I think FreightWaves just had a story yesterday where there's like 55 trucking companies, over, I want to say 30 or 50 trucks have gone out of business in the last quarter, something like that. There's a lot of capacity falling out, not related to the non-domicile and all that, but because they've for years have been leveraged to the max, have been working off of loans, have been just operating at a loss or break even, and they just can't go any further. They can't. They're just not. They're not going to make it. So they basically the end of the year is here. We're into the holidays, and a lot of these are just shuttering. And okay, we've had. We just can't do it. We can't make it. So you have that side of it too. So it's not just a lot of drivers being taken off the road. It's a lot of carriers and a lot of trucks just being flushed out of the business, just not being able to make it in the business. So there's absolutely perfect storm right now brewing where there is some bullishness going into 2026. Whether you think it's right or wrong on how we're getting there, that can be debated and that can be discussed. But I think we can all agree that we're starting to see some bullishness out there, and we're starting to see some data that suggests that things are improving and they're going to get better. And it's interesting. It's really interesting because it's been tough, man. You guys know, if you've been subscribed to this channel, I've lost some trucks. I wasn't able to pull through with all the trucks that I've had at one time. I currently only have 2 trucks running freight, and it was really, it's been a tough ride for me. Now, last year and the year before 24 and 23 were the years that really hit me the hardest. 25 has been pretty good for me. Now, granted, I don't have a truck payment, so obviously that makes a big difference. But also, freight's been pretty good for my trucks this year. Maybe that's fortunate, and it's kind of all over the map because I know a lot of drivers that say freight's been great for them this year, or at least significantly better. And I know a lot of drivers that are saying that this year has just been absolutely a wreck for them. In reefer, flatbed, dry van, doesn't matter, all of it. So it's hit and miss, and there's not really a way to look at it all through the same lens. But it's been tough. It's been really tough, and I've felt it. But it is nice to be at the end of the year and my truck's doing well. Jim, who drives my Peterbilt, he's making good money, and to be coming towards the end of 2025 when my truck's doing well and seeing everything start to look really good for 2026, or at least better than I thought it would be. Because again, you go back 3 months ago and the sky was falling. Like there was just no hope for 2026. There was no data to show that it was going to improve or get better. And I think a lot of the industry was kind of just buckling in for a 2026 that was the same or worse as 2025. And now that's not the case. Now it's starting to look like, okay, this might actually really improve. Like we might actually see going into the end of the first quarter, into the second quarter, peak season, summer produce, all that, we might actually see a really strong year next year, or certainly a better year than this year and the previous two. And it's a result of that perfect storm. So, whether you think it's right or wrong what the administration is doing, the end result of a lot of what's been happening is that the freight market and trucking is showing signs of pretty big improvement on the horizon for American trucking companies and American truck drivers. That is what it's shaping up to be right now. So, is it a good time to get into it? I don't know, man. It's a question I've gotten for some 7 years that I've been driving. Is now a good time to get into trucking? I don't know. There's always good reasons and bad reasons to get into trucking. I would say that I don't know how to answer that. Because it could go either way. I would say that it now is a better time than a year ago. I would certainly say that. Just based on my numbers and what I'm kind of seeing with consistency with freight, we're still not waiting 24 hours between loads like I was last year. My trucks were last summer, and you can go back and watch those videos, but last summer I had months where my trucks would sit for 24 hours between every load. It wasn't necessarily that the rates were killing me, it's that the volume was killing me. It was just not enough freight, not enough loads in a week to keep things above water. And that hasn't been the case for me this year. Now, there's a lot of loads that the freights are less than desirable. There's a lot of deadhead on a lot of these loads. But at least we're moving, and the loads are pretty consistent, and we're getting planned right either before or right after we get unloaded. So to me, that's a big improvement. And there are some great rates. I've ran a $3 mile load. I ran a $3.50 mile load last week, but this one's $1.90 with the deadhead. It's got some deadhead, so a lot of that's empty. So it's fine, and it keeps me out of the cold and out of the snow. As a matter of fact, that's why I picked this load when I pulled up Load Choice, without really even looking at any other details other than where it picks up and where it drops off, and when it picks up and when it drops off, because I'm just trying to stay out of the weather as much as possible until I can go home for Christmas. So that's where I'm at right now. But anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on it. I know it's very controversial. A lot of people are passionate. I think a lot of people get really triggered and a little too emotional about it for certain aspects of all this to be debated or discussed, and that's unfortunate. But hopefully it's not up for debate that if you're an legal American with a CDL, you could be well positioned going into 2026. That is 100% true. Love to know your thoughts. All right, be safe, make good decisions, always drive, thrive. Talk to y'all soon.